Data is. Thank you all for coming today. Data is so excited to bring a guest speaker to talk to us something that can professionally change your lives. We're pretty excited. We invited lots of students for free pizza. Come on in. We won't buy cars. We won't hook anyone up to electro. That you sign in up front if you're needing extra credit for a class. If you're not certificate, we'll send you a certificate later. So we're delighted that you're here with us today. We have Rhonda Souder with us today. She's going to talk about neurofeedback. This is something new and exciting in the field of psychology and beyond. Other fields as well. You're not just in psychology, right?
Correct.
So her credentials are amazing. It says she's a graduate of Murray State University and the University of Louisville, and been doing this work for 25 years. That is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So we are excited to have her here. If you need anything, there are lots of Ivy Tech people in the room, so feel free to ask us. Everybody know where bathrooms and those kinds of things are? Okay. Please make sure we don't put somebody stranded.
Yeah, good, because you can only stay as long as your bladder can.
That's right.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me. Where's Dee?
So Deidre Stanton is one of our amazing adjuncts in the psychology faculty, and she met this incredible woman and said, I think we should, there she is. We should bring her to Ivy Tech and let her educate us.
Okay. Well, I think I will tell you just a little bit about myself so you kind of know my journey, and then we're just going to dive in. I did start doing counseling. Probably my first practicum was in 1990. My guess is probably none of you who are attending this were actually born yet. I've been doing this for a hot minute. That was talk therapy. I went into talk therapy, but I've always loved the brain. And when I read the book, The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk, there was a chapter on neurofeedback. And it resonated so strongly with me that I left the practice that I was in and I started Bloomington Neurofeedback because he was saying in the book some things that I have experienced for the last 25 years working with people. And that is when you're in an office with a therapist and things are mostly calm, you do really well. When I'm in a therapy office with my own therapist, I do pretty well. But when I get into the wild, where things are chaotic or people are upsetting, maybe at home with my husband of 30 something years, he knows how to push my buttons. I know how to push his, and then things go out the window, right? When the nervous system gets too aroused, good talk therapy doesn't work. Our brains don't have the capacity to grasp the things that we know. He talked about that in this book. And everything came together. And so that's why I switched. And I did a deep dive into neurofeedback. I'm now board certified. It required lots of things, but I feel really good. If you're going to go to somebody to have work done on your brain, they should probably know a little bit about the brain. In fact, you know a little bit. Okay, you ready for the slides? Let's do some slides. The first part of the presentation, let me give you an overview. The first part is going to be information heavy. Then the next part is hopefully going to be a live demonstration and then questions and answers. Okay. Do I have this is me. Okay. Oh, sorry. This is the one thing I should have learned how to for. It points here. I was going to say, you've got the drive. Am I even pushing the right button? All right. Sorry, guys. I don't give presentations very often. Good, it's not just me. Okay. It is the clicker. I actually came last week to work all the kinks out, but there's always kinks. So let me just, I know my slides are going, but let me just keep talking to you for a second. So I want to take a really big picture approach because I could dive into the weeds really easily with neuro. Okay, with neurofeedback. The picture is a 30,000 foot view, right? What is it? What does it do? Who can it help? And hopefully I won't be in the weeds too much. Okay, so Albert Einstein, who died in 1955, said this: future medicine will be the medicine of frequencies. And what he was talking about here were vibrations, okay? So if you think about that, and you think about what I do with brain wave, there are frequencies. How fast does any of these particular waves go? And so I've seen recently where people are treating brain cancer with patches on their head that produce a certain frequency, and that's targeting cancer. So Einstein was onto something, but we're just now getting there 70 plus years later. So that's the big view. Frequencies is going to be really important as we go forward. Can I click it now? The forward button. Just did it and it worked. Go ahead and just go forward. Yes, I work with technology all the time. Not with technology. Okay, and I'll just say next, and you guys can hit the button. So when we're talking about neurofeedback, there are two overarching ideas. Go ahead. That the brain's electrical activity, and go ahead, can first reflect our state of being, reflect a mental state. And I will talk a little bit more about this so you understand, and that it can be trained. Not only does it reflect a state, but also we can train it. When you do neurofeedback, you're not doing therapy, you're doing training. You are learning something. Your brain is learning something new. All right, go ahead. So let's talk about these states. So in neurofeedback, my computer very quickly can pull apart the brainwave into its component parts. And I'm going to talk to you from slowest to fastest. And if you just look at the screen, you can tell that the slowest wave is called a delta wave. And it is 1 to 4 times a second. Go ahead. Delta is super important for memory. We see it often and it's very predictable in sleep. It's very, very powerful in sleep. And it helps in repair of the brain. You guys are young. I know what it's like to be a college student. Sometimes the weekends you stay up a long time, or maybe you've got a project that's due and you pull an all-nighter. Not great. If you can get your sleep, your brain is going to thank you. The new research is showing that delta waves actually push the junk out of your brain into the cerebral spinal fluid and then get rid of it. So delta waves not only store memory in how they pulse, but they get rid of the garbage. They take out the trash. Theta waves are 4 to 8 times a second, and they are drowsy waves. And you know this, you're reading a book, you've got this article to read, class or whatever, and you are nodding off. Like you're not completely asleep, but you know you're going. That's a really strong theta wave. Theta is important because it's needed for memory, but strangely enough, theta wave encodes a lot of emotional memory. It's very emotional, almost experiential in nature. And it's important in creativity, among other things. Go ahead. Then we have alpha waves. And in real time, alpha waves make this very nice sinusoidal wave, and I can pick them out in real time while I'm doing an EEG with someone. Everything else is too messy. But alpha is coming from the thalamus, which is the deep part of the brain. Every sense you have comes through the thalamus except smell. Smell goes straight in. That's why you guys were all lured in here by the popcorn. I mean, I smelled it as soon as I walked in the door, right? It's like I've got to go. Yes, you're nodding. I get it. Right? Smell goes into the brain faster than anything, and it can elicit a memory faster than anything. But when we're in an alpha state, meditators want to be in an alpha state. It's calm, it's relaxed. So we're looking for a strong alpha. And then we have beta waves. And beta are thinking, processing, problem solving. It's that fast, just cortical, all on the outside. The gray matter, it's popping. It should look like static, like that. the slide we saw before that I said there's two things, right? The background EEG of that was actually someone who was having a seizure. You don't want that, right? That is a state of being that you don't want. But thank you. But each of these other ways of behaving, our brain behaving, also produce a state. We can go on. Thank you. And so we need all of them. We just need them in the right intensity, the right amount of power, because if you're trying to learn something new, you don't want to make too much beta wave. I mean, you don't want to make too much theta wave. You don't want to be drowsy when you're trying to learn. The same thing in reverse is true if you're trying to go to sleep. I need to go to sleep, but I've got a test tomorrow, and now my beta is all popping around because I don't fully know the material and I'm stressed. You're going to have too much beta to fall asleep. So it's balancing these things for what you want to have happen. Okay, a little bit of the history. In 1920, Hans Berger, a German scientist, discovered the EEG. He discovered that, yes, your brain makes electrical signals. And since then, till now, the research on neurofeedback is exploding. And it's not just with an EEG, there are some fMRI neurofeedback, there's other things, but I looked up in Google Scholar how many articles last year, and only for half of the year, there were 10 pages of articles that had been published in peer-reviewed journals by the half, like June of last year. The research is crazy. It's going crazy. All right, next. So I first want to talk about a quantitative EEG or a brain map. Some people will call it that. I want to look at how your brain is functioning before I start messing with it. And you see the cap there. That is probably in a neurologist's office because it uses a lot more than what neurofeedback practitioners use. But here's an example of a cap. Just looks like this. We fill the holes with conductive gel, kind of like ultrasound gel, not exactly the same, but similar. And it just reads what your brain is doing. It's just listening. I'm just listening. I'm never, ever applying stimulation of any kind. So when people hear electrodes, sometimes they freak out. It's not that. We're just listening and then giving feedback. Okay, next. So a quantitative EEG, where's the cap? It gives me brainwave activity through advanced statistical measures. And I wish I was this statistics guru and I would bore you to tears. I'm just not. I like statistics and I had to take them, but I'm done. And I'm just glad somebody was smarter than me and figured it all out. It presents a picture of the brain so that I can look at it, and it's statistically significant or not. And I want to say that it's not like research significance, but is this outside of norms within a standard statistical bell curve? It also helps me identify where the dysregulated parts of your brain are. I have never seen a perfectly normal within norms brain. That would be really weird. I don't even know what to do with that. It's not like I want to train everything to the norm. I only want to train things that are causing you problems, because some things outside of norms make you you. I don't want to make you un-you. I just want to take the problems and smooth them out. Next. Okay. It will show me location in the brain. It shows me how much power your brain is making. It shows me speed, so frequency. It shows me connection, and it shows me asymmetry. Your brain should function asymmetrically. It should not function exactly the same on both sides. I'll get to that in a second. All right. So here's how many people have taken statistics? Couple.
Psych 101.
Psych 101 is okay. Okay. It's just a bell curve. And so go ahead to the next slide. Everything that I'm looking at as normal falls within 2 standard deviations on either side of the mean. One more time. So that means 95.4% of the population falls there. Go ahead and and the next one too. So what I'm looking at are for where people fall way outside of the norms on either end, either too much or too little. Okay, everybody's following a little bit so far? Okay, great. Next. So here's an example of a 54-year-old female, and I'm going to walk up there just so I can point something out. This is what I'm looking at when I look at a quantitative EEG. So everything in gray is within norms, and that's what I'm looking for, generally speaking. Areas of light blue seeing 3 standard deviations below, and we're talking about, this is just power here, how much power is the brain making? Dark blue is 4 or more standard deviations below the norm. Red is 3 standard deviations above. And when we get to the next slide, you'll see that there's yellow, which means 4 or above. So this person is working fairly okay. There's not too much horrible things. I can tell by that map. Is it working now?
Well, this is the laser scene.
Oh, I can, how do I?
In the middle.
In the middle.
I didn't do anything.
There we go, there we go. There, I probably did that one, but I didn't know it's this button right here.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you can see at the bottom, let's see, we'll see. Yeah, at the bottom, the frequencies are in green. It's a slider. It's just where I want them to be. I want that person to be within those norms. The next person, did I do that or did you? Excellent, it's working. The next person is an 8-year-old little dude who I love, who has Tourette's and was having a lot of trouble in school. It was just becoming unmanageable OCD symptom. Turns out it's not just Tourette's, which is what I was told by, like, they had gotten and checked with the neurologist. It's, I believe it's Candace, if any of you are familiar, which is caused by strep. It's a strep, I can't explain it now, but it's a strep complication where the immune system starts attacking its own tissue. The tissue just happens to be in his brain. And the reason we found that out is because about 6 weeks ago, he had strep, and then just almost overnight, whoop, the symptoms are just as bad as when we started. But the good news is neurofeedback has helped him and will continue to do it. But you can see here that this little guy's brain works entirely too hard. He's making so much power. He's outside of norms in every category. And not only that, his brain generally is a little bit slower than what we want. These are normed based on ages, based on biological sex, because men's and women's brains work differently, and we need to know what that is, okay? There's a lot of different ways to do neurofeedback. I do EEG neurofeedback, which is electroencephalogram. That's what I use. But there are many ways, but all with the idea of improved functioning. That's the goal. So I'm going to transition from the map that shows me where some areas are outside of norms to what is the training itself. The goal of the training is that there's regulation of brainwave pattern. For a lot of people, it kind of lives outside of conscious awareness, but people tend to feel better. And what feels better tends to get repeated. Have you noticed that? You're here because there's pizza, or maybe you had to be, right? Maybe you had to be, and there's also pizza, but popcorn, right? So things that feel good tend to get repeated. Think about what you repeat a lot. It uses a human person and a computer. We're connected. And it gives visual or auditory cues as rewards. It's based on operant conditioning. Operant conditioning, learning theory, anybody know that? Basically, let's think about it this way. If I want my young child to be more kind, I might reward him every time he says please or thank you. Something like that, right? What you reward, you tend to get more of. What you punish, you tend to get less of. Speeding tickets. You know, I've been pulled over a couple times, one not so long ago because I have a lead foot, right? I don't like that. Guess how slow I drove home the rest of the time? Pretty slow, I'll tell you. So, this is how we reward and train the brain, through giving some sort of something that the person wants. Well, what is it? I'll show you in a minute. It's a visual auditory cue. Okay, here we go. So here's my process. Just if you came into my office, what would you experience? The first several things is just a very, very thorough assessment. I want to know what I'm working with. So a clinical interview. but not just a typical clinical interview, because I've done those for 25, 30 years. This one's gonna ask you questions like, did you play sports? If so, what kind of sports? Football, soccer? Ever have a concussion? I'd ask about your sleep. How is your sleep? What time do you go to sleep? What time do you wake up? Is it restful? Is it not? I ask about your bowel. How regular are you? How loose is your stool? How much constipated? Like, not normal therapy. I mean, just talk therapy. They don't want to know that, right? But me, your brain controls all of that. I want to know. It's clues about what I might find. I check primitive reflexes. Primitive reflexes are something that's to get integrated by the time you're a year to a year and a half old. But what I find, especially with people with learning disorders or ADHD, they have a lot of retained reflexes. If you remember about reflexes, they don't go all the way to your brain. It's spinal cord, right? Like, it's just immediate. You can't control it. That's why the doctor, checks your knee or whatever. If the reflexes have not been integrated, that higher learning can't take place. That cognitive functioning, that's the smoothness of it, can't take place. So we want to integrate those, and there's just exercises. I do psychological surveys, I do physiological surveys, I do cognitive performance tests. That would be you looking at the computer, and every time you see the word red, you hit the space bar as fast as you can. I can tell things about attention, executive functioning, auditory memory, auditory working memory, just by doing some of these tests. And then I do a quantitative EEG, which we've already talked about. About a week later, clients come back and they get to look at all the results, and we talk about what does it mean and what's the course of training that I would do with them. So we look at problem areas. Let's say somebody comes in and says, I can't sleep. I'm having trouble sleeping. In fact, I just got off the phone with somebody earlier today. If that's the case, she's gonna come and see me in a few weeks because she can't sleep. And then I look at the QEEG results. Man, you can hardly see where my two circles are. That actually is a circle. And where I work, it's a Venn diagram. I work right in the middle. So I don't want to change everything. We're not trying to not make you. It's just, where are their problems? And where do we see those problems in the quantitative EEG? And then I set up neurofeedback training and reward certain things and punish certain things. Not really punish, it's just the screen fade. So people typically come twice a week. I might refer them to a medical provider or a nutritionist, because there's a lot of things that can interfere with brainwaves. An endocrinologist, if their hormones are, causing problems. We want the body and the brain to function as efficiently as it can. And if there's something that's causing the brain not to function well, like the mitochondria in the cells, remember that from biology, the energy powerhouse. If there's something that's prohibiting them from creating energy, and guess what uses the most energy? Brain. We want to make sure that they have what they need to go forward. The other things that I use, and I've brought a couple that I will show you. I might use heart rate variability training with people. I might use pulse electromagnetic. Dr. Connolly said, are you nervous? I was like, of course, right? Whenever you give a presentation, you're nervous. So today in my office, I had my little pulse electromagnetic. This is a radio wave, and it helps my cells talk better to each other. Used to, before all the cell phones and the Wi-Fi and just the electromagnetic radiation, the Earth itself gave us a pulse. And now we can only find it if you go way out to sea where you don't have all of that stuff. They find the waveforms again. This will do what the Earth is being too polluted to do. Anyway, it calms me right down. So I use things like this with people all the time as an adjunct to neurofeedback. It just helps us get into a better place. Photobiomodulation, it's a 1,000 syllables. It just means light therapy. And I'll show you this little guy that I use with some clients. I'll tell you who uses it more than anybody. It's my husband. We share an office, so he can use it a lot, but it's actually loaded, you can see, with diodes. Sorry for the people on Zoom, you probably can't see it, but I use this to support what we're doing with neurofeedback. It doesn't create permanent changes, it just helps support. This actually puts photons of light into brain tissue. It's very safe and it can pulse at certain rates. Anyway, I won't go, again, I don't want to get into the weeds, but okay, you're looking like, oh my goodness, stay out of the weeds.
No, I want it.
So who can benefit? Well, peak performance, right? So this is not just clinical, but it can be used to take somebody who's already performing at the top and get them 5% better, 5% faster, 5% calmer. I've been working with an IU athlete who was able to go to his NCAA tournament in his sport. And he had been injured, a pretty gruesome injury, and had developed mono with Epstein-Barr virus that hangs on. So his energy level was depleted. He was doing a lot of things. Neurofeedback was just part of it, was just part of what we were doing. ADHD and learning disabilities, insomnia, I've already said. In fact, I asked if I could use this today because another client texted me and I asked if I could use her quote. She said, "Hi, Rhonda. I slept 8 hours straight for the last 2 nights. Thanks, neurofeedback," with a smiley face. That just came in today to me. This is why I love what I do, because I get results. Anxiety, there are brain patterns that show if a person was anxious. If somebody sent me a quantitative EEG, a map of somebody, I could point to some things and I would say, if I didn't know this client, I would say, is your client anxious? And almost 95% of the time, it's like, yes, they struggle with this kind of anxiety or this thing. Depression, complex PTSD, and just traditional PTSD. And the difference is, let's say I'm in a car wreck and now I don't want to drive, right? I have that kind of developed trauma response. That would be, I would say, traditional PTSD. Complex is developmental. So you take a child who's been raised in a home where parents are using drugs and are neglectful and there's abuse and all that. That's that long term. So one is like if there's just a few incidents of trauma, the other is if it's chronic. We can't even separate one trauma from the next. It's particularly good at that. Maybe people are familiar with EMDR, which is a bilateral stimulation of the brain. That's wonderful for specific traumas like a car wreck or, whatever. But if it's a lot, neurofeedback is so much better and it's easier for people. Epilepsy, we're talking about brainwave. There are certain kinds of neurofeedback we can do with epilepsy, even epilepsy that's not controlled well with medication. In fact, it's only 12:30, is that right? So I got time to talk. At the beginning with neurofeedback, a guy named Barry Sturman was doing research with cats back in the day when it was easier to do research with animals, and I think things have changed for the better. But he trained cats to make more of a certain kind of frequency. He trained certain cats, like just make more of it, and they could do it. They could make more power in frequencies 12 through 15 over the motor strip. It's like, okay, that's a cool trick, right? EEG, like in the 60s, it started to develop, like, okay, this is great, but okay. He put the cats away and was doing other stuff. NASA contacted him because in the 60s, the astronauts were having seizures around the rocket fuel, very toxic. And just exposure to the fuel created a seizure. Now, you don't want your astronauts in space having seizures. That's a bad plan. So they asked him, could he explore this? And he started doing research with his cats. Some cats were trained with SMR and some weren't. And he tried to figure out why were these one cats not having seizures? All the other cats were having seizures. It was the cats that had been practicing increasing their levels of 12 through 15 hertz, just increasing power. And he found that was a really stabilizing. The research was so robust that his assistant had to, finally said, you have to try this on a human. And it turns out that his, probably a grad assistant, actually, I forgot the story. Poor grad assistant. The grad assistant was having seizures. She was missing days of work. Her life was just not great. And so he tried it, and you know what? Her seizures dramatically came down. They were controlled, they were manageable, and she could work. And it was so robust again, it's like we have to try this on more people. And sure enough, it is very effective for medically uncontrolled seizures. I don't do a lot of it. There are other people that specialize in this, but it's pretty amazing. And then migraine. Migraine, if anybody suffers from migraines or even headaches, neurofeedback can be particularly helpful for that. There are other things, of course, everything comes from the brain. I'll show you some examples later, but that's where we're at on that. So there's the question, right? Does it work? It's not magic. And it's not digital snake oil, for those of you old enough to know what that means. It's not an elixir for everything, but 80 to 85% of people who do neurofeedback training get positive outcomes. Now, is it 100% for that whole 85 or 80%? No, it is anything, usually 100%, you know, maybe once or twice in your lifetime is 100% of anything. But participants say, yes, I am improving.
Could it be a placebo?
It could be. But the cats that made more SMR, now what's their placebo? Right? With humans, there's always placebo. And there is a really good relationship that develops between my clients and I. I'm talking to them all the time. I'm letting the stuff, and it's high tech, right? So there can be absolutely a placebo effect. But the research with cats, that's the one I can't figure out. Where's the cat has no, it just can't, doesn't do that.
We usually suggest placebo one. So it's possible, but some of them.
Or, but not all of them. No, and I will show you some things. So this is a comment from a 23-year-old female who had that complex trauma, anxiety and depression and insomnia. And she began with me in 2023, in January of last year. She said, it surprised me how fast I started to notice the changes from not sleeping more than 2 or 3 hours to sleeping 8 to 10. It was crazy. Even with my anxiety, even after every other medication failed for me. And then she goes on, I would recommend it because I tried so many other styles of therapy and never felt like I was making progress. Or if I did, it would stop. I would hit a dead end. And with neurotherapy, I've always felt like I could progress, even being able to see the data. So for one of the kinds of neurofeedback I do, I can show you the data. I can show you what your brain's doing over time. It was very rewarding too, and is a good motivation if I ever felt like I was starting to plateau. This is the person who would not go outside of her bedroom. And now she had started her own business. An 11-year-old with nonverbal learning disorder. Nonverbal looks a little bit like autism. It's just things like she had no desire to have friends. There wasn't a lot of connection with people. She wasn't doing great in school. As you can imagine, the older she got. Mom says, neurofeedback seems unconventional, but it just makes sense and helped with every aspect of her life. There's less fighting at home. She has a friend group and saw huge improvements in school. Beyond all of that, she's just plain happier, and that is priceless. Here's her test score. I don't know that you can see them on yours or on mine, but I'm gonna highlight some things. So Mom sent me this, and this is her math score, and it was always just barely above the national average, so that's great. But her reading scores, if you can see here, is below that average. But as we work together, boom, it shot up. She scored in the 90, I think 6% or something. I can't hardly see it on the screen. But as far as like more progress than her peers. Like, so she was under and then she was over. Yeah, she's been working with me for most of the school year. This is not magic. It's not just right now. She has a friend group. Now, is she as close as people without nonverbal? No, but she has friends now. Here's my little 8-year-old with Tourette's. This is a severity rating, and so I have people create their own tracker. What's bothering you? What do you want to keep track of? And here, I think attention span and hyperactivity, you can see That it was for mom, severity was at an 8 and her hyperactivity at a 9, but then it came down over time, and that's what we want to see. Distractible, was it not listening? That's what she said. Down, better. Like, so here at 8 and 7, like that's hard to deal with in a family or even just personally. But to see that go into a more manageable trend over time is certainly exciting to me. You can see more of it there. And here I had an 11-year-old, the mom, a boy. He came in and he was quite depressed, a lot of attention deficit, but mom says he came in struggling to cope with ADHD, meaning focus at math, and was depressed. And when we say depressed, I mean, he was super depressed. In fact, mom cried in my office because she did not realize how depressed he was. I mean, it was sad. If we hadn't done neurofeedback with you, I believe he would just kept slipping. Throughout his time in therapy, I could see his demeanor change. There's a receptionist in the shared office space I have. She's not my receptionist, so she doesn't know what's going on with the client. But 3 weeks into his training, she said, "What are you doing? He is a different kid." It was true. It was true. He became more upbeat, less withdrawn, and improved math scores. Throughout the process, I began to see the side of my son I hadn't seen in a while, my sweet goofball. And so it allowed him the at least potential to be successful. Here's some results. Someone was tracking being distracted and focus and comprehension, and you can see where they scored at the beginning, just a different kind of graph, and where they were later on. This is an adult male, and that's the kind of results I want. That's not the kind of results you always get in talk therapy. This is a 41-year-old female who was coming to me for peak performance. She was already like a high performer, business owner, just like on top of things and just joyful, just really an amazing person. But I do a thorough evaluation and I ask, are there any medical things I need to know about? Anything, like anything at all. And she hadn't told me anything. She's like, I have a lazy eye and my left eye since I was 10 years old. And I was like, what lazy eye? I had no idea when she told me this. A couple of days ago, after being on the computer all day and staring at the screen until 9 p.m., which usually really inflates, I looked over and realized that I have not even thought about my lazy eye in the past few weeks. Lazy eye, she wasn't coming to me for lazy eye. I didn't even know it affected lazy eye. But guess what? Now she didn't have double vision. She could drive late into the night. And she says, like, I'm totally in awe, all caps, right? Because neurofeedback helped her change her life. She had talked to the doctor about it. These are the kinds of things I hear. It's not 100%. It's not. There's a little guy who's 5. We've been working for probably 20 sessions. And the other day, he looked just as bad as when we started. So it's not all roses. But I got to tell you, this is really fulfilling to me to see so many people making progress. Okay, Q&A. So here's what I want to do. I've got the thing set up to do a live demo, if you want to see that. And we can either take questions now or do the demo and then take questions. I don't care. You have a preference? No? Let's do a demo. Do I have a volunteer? Somebody? Oh my gosh. I don't know. I'm not going to pick. You guys pick.
No, you did.
Aww.
We have to live with them.
Hat. What's your name?
Ryan.
Ryan.
No, Ryan.
Oh, Ryan, sorry. That's yay, Ryan. Okay. Sorry, okay. So I'm gonna have you sit here. Yeah, you can however it makes sense. And I'm gonna come around and I'll put the electrodes on you again. Nothing's gonna go, you're not gonna be zapped or anything like that. And I think it's gonna show on this screen. Yes, when I share my screen on Zoom, it's gonna show there. So I'm gonna go back and forth between a couple things. It's gonna take long. You should worry that I didn't look at my pages. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Sorry. Are you nervous? Okay, I'm totally kidding. My anxiety. Huh? First joke.
Yeah.
All right, what I'm gonna do is just clean off, any kind of oils on your skin or dead skin cells. It's just alcohol.
Foliation too.
Yeah. Just a caustic.
Can we ask questions while you're doing that?
You can, I'm not sure how focused I will be, but absolutely, go ahead.
So
Anybody?
is this something that people can afford? Is this something that insurance will help cover the cost of?
Right now, insurance does not cover it, so it's a lot like getting braces. It's out of pocket, and I can give you a super bill to submit to insurance companies. I've had a couple of times the insurance company has said yes. The last EOB, they said they would pay me $34 for my hour. I cannot cover my expenses for $34 an hour. Or even just the training can't cover that. So right now it's out of pocket, but it's coming to insurance. There will have to be some adjustments, so that I can afford to do it. So, yeah, right now it's out of pocket.
So is there a difference for the initial assessment versus the training? I mean, are there choices that we could make to make it better?
Yes, so. I mean, you volunteer, so. So, the assessment for me is the 2 sessions, once to get the data and once to go over the information with you. It's $3.95. That's 3 hours of being in my office. The national average for what I do 2 years ago was $850. I feel really good about that. $3.95 is kind of a hard sell. People think it's a lot of money, and it is. It's money, but I feel good about it. For the training themselves, it's $125 session, and that's a lot of money because you need several. But there are health insurance plans. There it is. Health insurance, like health savings, not insurance, but health savings plans where there's a medical lending company that looks for 0% financing for medical stuff. So if you wanted to have liposuction or dental work or whatever, any of those kinds of things, I think they just treat people fairly because they don't charge interest on anything you've already paid. If you don't pay it off in the free period, which is usually 14 to 15 months, then they will only charge you interest on that. I don't get any kickbacks from them. I think they treat people fairly. I feel. Okay. The word is like sticky. This is paste. It's a conductive paste. I got 2 reference points on his ears and 1 ground. If you think about electrical socket, it's sort of like that. It's not exactly the same, but it functions again as another electrical component. And here's my active electrode. This for a second.
Supposed to be electricity, remember, right? What's a little more?
Yeah. Oh, I'm not gonna add it. I'm just gonna see how much is there.
See what
Okay, trying to go over. We're just gonna do a couple of minutes of this, and you're not gonna feel it. Again, Joe. You really won't. You won't feel. Shouldn't sense anything other than just on your head. And I promise it's cleaned up really easy with just alcohol. Okay, so now I need to plug you in. I want you to face forward. Okay. I'm gonna plug this in. Okay. You're good. All right, so I need to do something with Zoom. Where do Ellie. I don't even see anything that says that will allow me to. You know. Let's just. Okay.
And
Here, here, and here. Just move here. If you want to turn, you can do too. Just turn. Yeah, you can turn either way. So it's only, let's see. There we go. Okay, sorry, I'm just having trouble with all the different pop-ups that are on my screen, just seeing what I need to see. Just be nice and relaxed, like as relaxed as you can. Okay, so there's his brainwave. Brainwave, it's there, look at that. I want you to like shake your head around just a little bit, not super hard, just move. Just a little bit. Okay, some of that up and down, that's just movement. It's not brain. So sit as relaxed as you possibly can. Nice and chill. Good. There's no feedback right now. You would not see this screen if you were my client. This is what I'm looking at. I've set certain thresholds, like I want his brain to be rewarded 80% of the time when it's right. Again, this is based on learning theory. I don't want his brain to go, like, I know how to do this perfectly, because then it won't continue to grow. I want his brain to only get rewarded 80% of the time, and 20% he's doing the right thing, but he doesn't get rewarded. Like, why not? His brain continues to figure that out. Make yourself as noodly as possible. Loose. Just play the back, yeah. Good. All right. So while I'm going to move stuff around, I hope, and I'm going to show you what he will be seeing, or my client will be seeing. No, nice. There's so many little pop-ups on the screen that aren't normal.
Take a picture of this, for my brother's action.
Do you need to minimize that?
I need this one that says that it's recording. I need it to move down because it's in my way. I can't grab and pull that over until I can try. Okay. Now here is what you might be watching. Shares and you.
I have to name this out the other day and it was so sweet. It was his version of Christ Brothers and my version. And it was I'm like,
I'll go right to it. So it's going, video going, one video. It is, it's National Geographic. Why isn't it? Yeah, sorry guys, we actually did practice this last week and. All right. What's happening that as his brain is doing something, doing what I want, not doing what I want, the screen can fade in and out. It just, I was hoping to have you see it so you would see what the feedback looks like. Right. Because it's playing on my screen. In my office, I have two monitors. I have the computer that I'm looking at, and then I have a separate monitor for my client. they only see the video that I want them to see and the fadings in real time. I'm looking at what you just saw, the actual EEG, the trend screen, how things are going. I don't know why it's not working, but I can turn this around and you can, but even then, it's not what we want. It's a beautiful nature scene. It's the tropics. Again, I'm going on vacation tomorrow, and so I picked tropics. So, what questions do you all have? Let me take you off of that. Let's don't worry about that because I think we're just gonna have time. Thank you for volunteering. Was that painful at all?
I have a bunch.
I don't think so.
Good one. All right. So there should be nothing. That's what I tell, especially my younger kids who get a little nervous. I tell them it's like anything in Miss Rhonda's office should not hurt. If it hurts, we're doing something wrong.
Can we ask questions while you're removing?
You can. Yep, absolutely.
When you say you compare deviation, the two above and two below, if you have a client that is neurodiverse, what does that comparison look like?
So I don't have a database that shows like a group of neurodivergent. Who asked the questions? Okay. What I have is a normative database and then about 2 million EEGs clinical in nature. So what, it will show deviations from the norm given the age and the biological sex. But I don't have a database of neurodivergent kids look like this. All I can say is this supports what you're seeing in real life. This supports the behaviors that you're seeing. This supports the emotional response that you're seeing. Here's some ways that the brain is acting. I've got, you are ready to go. Thanks. What do I have to reward you? I didn't even bring, man.
Eat some popcorn in the back of the
Oh, there was
room.
pizza. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So right.
What was I even saying about nurturing? Just fading, but it really is in real time fading, to learn. But, I have a high functioning autistic person and his brain map actually looks pretty good. There are some things that could create more anxiety for him that we've been working on, but then also I can create protocols not necessarily based on just the map, but based on its functioning. And at that point, it's a little more trial and error, right? So the right side for autism tends to be underactive, just generally speaking, because connection is hard, understanding cues like prosody, like there's a theme song in our voice, understanding what that lilting kind of sound means, understanding other people's emotions is really difficult. So we can set up protocols that work towards helping that, right? Making it easier for kids, no matter what, or adults, no matter what their issues are, but it doesn't have to be just a map. His map looks pretty good. There was some anxiety stuff. Anyway, hope
Also
that
follow
helps.
to that. Do you have clients that have multiple diagnoses, and are you able to hone in on the feedback that you give them based on the diagnosis? Autistic, global development delay, complex PTSD, if they have multiple.
So here's what I will say about diagnoses, and everybody gets a diagnosis. If you're just talking about DSM diagnosis, not a fan, because there's so much, it's just symptom based. And the symptoms can be, it can be for this diagnosis or this diagnosis, how do we know? And because they don't look at a brain, how do you know? But if we're talking about neurodivergence, autism, complex PTSD, again, it's like, how are you functioning? And it's very individualized. It's like, what's interfering? What's causing you difficulty? I really want to know that. What do you want to be better? And once I know that, then we can focus. Are there places in the brain that look like, if I was just given this and I didn't know you, I would say, yes, this looks like anxiety. Are there places that show that? Or do we need to come in a different way and kind of address it? So, hope that helps.
I had a question about how you reward the brain. When you were having him there, are you showing them pictures of things that they could like and don't like? Is that the reward?
It's a movie, like, so, I had a nature video up because it's very soothing. But it can be, I mean, it can be anything that's not overly emotional. We don't want to create and train emotion, just kind of gentle. So there was a movie playing, and in real time, when his brain would go below what I wanted it to do, power-wise, the screen faded. And as his brain then started to do what I wanted, the screen played nice and bright. I can do that with video, like dimming and brightening. I can do it with audio, with the volume going up and down. There are other types of neurofeedback that I do. One just uses two tones. Most of the time people do this with their eyes closed, and it's just two tones playing back and forth. It's a very different kind. I'm not gonna go into it, but the reward for this kind is the brightening or fading of the screen, because your brain wants the movie to play nice and bright. That's it.
So the home training that you have, do they bring this machine home, or what do people do at home?
So I have a home training unit. I would rather, because I like to control things, I would rather people come to me if they can. But I've had people who use my home training. The problem is I have to really trust that the person connecting it knows what they're doing, because I just let somebody use it and they trained their kid wrong for 7 sessions. They were training both hemispheres, and she completely reversed the electrodes. You don't want to do that. No, I can untrain it. It's just training. And the research bears this out. If you train something up, you can also train it down. But why would we want to do that, right? So I'm just very cautious. I haven't used my home training a lot. People come to my office, mostly. So I think somebody, yeah.
Do you assign like binaural beats, and do you use those as part of the training?
I like binaural beats. I'd say, yes, use them if they seem helpful for you, because it is like bilateral stimulation. Go for it.
Did you ever check them with your little capsule?
With my what?
Oh, you like check them with your.
No, I've never done the research, but I do use something called audiovisual entrainment, which is similar. So entrainment means joining. It means something joined together. And for this, it's like your brain waves will sync up. If you're at a concert, beat, 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 right? Everybody's dancing the same, right? And it's all this, that's entrainment. Everybody's brain waves are like doing the same thing, or very similar, right? So entrainment happens a lot. The binaural beats kind of does that, like, because it's different hemispheres, right? You're getting a certain frequency, a certain, I used to be a music major, so this is kind of a nice, transition. But so with the audiovisual entrainment, there's just pulses of sound, different speeds in different ears, pulses of light. For this one, you close your eyes, but it goes through the eyelid, and you will entrain, your brain waves will sync up. So I use that to support what we're doing, because I can train the different sides like I want them to be. Again, that's more of a supportive. So the binaural beats, yeah, use it. It's frequency, absolutely. What else? I thought, yeah.
Are the results permanent? Can they eventually replace medication such as like Adderall, treatment speed up?
Oh, that is a big question.
Sorry.
So, no, it's okay. So, the results should be permanent, because what's happening is you're learning. Once you've learned something, it takes a lot to unlearn the thing, like riding a bicycle, right? If your brain practices it and it knows how to balance you on a bicycle, you can go for 10 years without being on a bicycle and get on. Now, you might be a little shaky, but your brain knows how to balance you. And with neurofeedback, it's the same. You want your brain to practice the thing enough. The research looks like people need between 30 and 40 sessions to get the learning. If they're making changes, right? You want to make sure they're making progress, but somewhere between 30 and 40 to make the change and to maintain them long enough that they're doing it on their own. Some cases are more difficult. Some cases are going to need more. Some cases are less. Like, I've had people sign up for 34, and then that's where I like to start people. And then, like, it's clear they only need 20. Like, okay, I think you're going to be great. And unless they have a concussion or something like that, that really like messes things up, it should stay. The research looks good. They followed kids, like 10 years and the results look good. And will it replace medicine? Oh, yes and no. For some people, yes. Some people can decrease the amount of medication they take. Some people cannot. Some people, it just helps the medication work better. So I'm not a proponent for no medication. I would love it if you didn't need medicine and your brain did what we wanted to do. The medication, the pharmaceutical industry has a big lobby. They have lots and lots of money. Neurofeedback, not so much, because it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Like, once you're done, most people don't ever come back and see me. Every once in a while, people want to take, a session or two, but it's a session or two. It's not 30, right? Or if somebody is going through something traumatic, like, okay, but it's usually maybe 4 or 5 sessions. We just want to remind the brain, hey, this is a better way to function. So I don't think I answered, but
You answered your part.
Anybody else? Anything else? I mean, there's a ton. Yes.
At a point earlier, you mentioned Wi-Fi, it interfered with some like communication between this and that. Are there other implications to being in Wi-Fi fields 24/7?
Yeah, turn it off. As much as you can, and it's really hard because it's just, it interferes with how the cells communicate with each other. Brain cells, body cells, all of it. Keep your cell phone off at night. Put it into airplane mode. The alarm still works if you're using it for alarm. Get your bed as far away from the Wi-Fi in your own apartment as possible. I mean, we're inundated. It's here. We need it, right? So now it's not, can we make it go away? It's like, how do we manage the pollution? If we have to be exposed to the pollution, how do we manage it? So the pulsed electromagnetic is great. It's expensive to buy a unit, but don't hold your cell phone at your ear. Anything that is wireless, put wires back to it. The wires will help you. It's a less, like people with earbuds, I know you all have earbuds, probably Bluetooth earbuds. They're very convenient, but you're putting all that electromagnetic radiation right in your brain. I would just say, as much as you can mitigate the risk for yourself, do it. Back in the 60s, when I was born, and the 70s, when I started wanting to suntan, you can see me, I am pale, right? I am not dark complected. People would suntan with baby oil. You would lay out on the dock and you would lather up in baby oil. Basically, we would dry ourselves on purpose. And a few doctors back then said, this is bad. And we're like, yeah, whatever. No. And now we know this is carcinogenic. It's cancer causing. You need sunscreen. Protect yourself. So there are a few doctors, and the research is mounting. Actually, it's a lot of research about electromagnetic stuff, right? The radiation, so the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth and all of that. The more you can do wired, the better. Long answer, sorry, soapbox.
So we're saying goodbye to this?
I would say goodbye.
I just bought them.
That's what I hate.
So here's the thing, again, mitigate. It just means, okay, sometimes I will use them, but if I use them today, tomorrow I won't. I would just, again, we're not gonna get rid of all the technology. It's here. The thing is, how do we protect ourselves? How do we protect ourselves as much as possible? Yeah.
How much does the machine cost and how long does it take to train?
In neurofeedback? Okay, so it depends on the amplifier and the system that you go with. I think all told, for me to start out, it was about $15,000. The training, because I want to be board certified, I needed another physiological psych class. So like psych, I don't even know if you guys offer it. So brain and nervous system anatomy, basically. I had one back in undergrad, I still have one, so I had to redo that class. I needed 36 hours of didactic training in neurofeedback, and also 100 contact hours where I went over things with a mentor, and then taking a test. So a lot of info, a lot of practice, and then testing. I think in the next 2 years, I think there'll be another practitioner here in Bloomington. Right now, as far as I know, I'm the only mental health practitioner using neurofeedback south of Greenwood in the state. There is a chiropractor who does neurofeedback. He's got a second office in Bloomfield. But I wouldn't want to go to a chiropractor necessarily to do mental health stuff. But if that's who you have access to, do it. One of my favorite guys is a chiropractor in North Carolina, and I consult with him all the time. So it's not that. There is no license for neurofeedback. There is board certification. You have to be licensed in another field. So nursing, chiropractic, counseling, psychology. I just consulted with 2 different psychologists, one in Terre Haute and one in Columbus, that are going to add neurofeedback to their practice. So it's coming, and the insurance then will follow. Anything else? Thank you, guys. You're very great.
My students did today.
You. Not the rest.
Never.